LeBron James is leaving Los Angeles. Reported, the Lakers just admitted they've reached a standstill on a $94 million target. Reported, Rob Pelinka's front office may be forced into a corner before training camp even opens. Analysis, a stalled sign-and trade could hand a promising forward to a division rival instead. Reported, the Lakers already have one too many players on the roster, and someone has to go. Reported, and a $3 million reclamation project might end up mattering more than anyone expected. Analysis, this could be the most chaotic Lakers offseason in years. Welcome back to the channel, your home for the latest Lakers news, trade rumors, roster moves, and breaking developments. Before we get into it, tell us in the comments which decision worries you the most this offseason. Let's get into it. Mini headline. LeBron James's Lakers era is reportedly over. Context. For 8 seasons, the Lakers built their entire identity around LeBron James. Every trade, every roster decision, every timeline conversation ran through him. That era now appears to be ending. Source, according to multiple national NBA reporters, James has decided against re-signing with Los Angeles and is instead expected to join the Philadelphia 76ers. It is being described as reported, not yet a signed, official contract. Mechanics. James's free agency stretched across the entire early offseason, effectively freezing other teams' plans at his position while the league waited on his decision. With him now reportedly headed elsewhere, several other free agents who play similar roles are finally free to explore their markets. Why it matters. This is the longest uninterrupted stretch James has spent with a single franchise, and more than double the length of his next longest tenure anywhere else. Losing him doesn't just change the roster, it changes what kind of team the Lakers are trying to build. Obstacle. There's a wrinkle here. James's agent has reportedly pushed back on one narrative already circulating, that James and his son Bronny were a package deal in these decisions. According to that same camp, the two situations are not linked, and there's no current plan for the two to reunite on the same roster. Debate. Some will see this as the end of an era that should have been extended. Others will argue the front office is finally free to build a roster shaped by Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves instead of around a 40-something-year-old star's timeline. Unresolved consequence. The real question is what the Lakers do with the cap flexibility and locker room identity shift that comes with this exit, and whether Bronny James's own future in Los Angeles gets more complicated as a result. Transition. That's not the only relationship the front office has to sort out this summer. Mini headline. The Lakers say they're more than happy to keep Bronny James, but it would take something real to move him elsewhere. Context. With LeBron reportedly gone, attention has shifted to his son, whose Lakers' future had been assumed to be tied to his father's. Source. Reports out of the organization indicate the front office views Bronny as a keeper, not a throw-in, and would want legitimate value back in any trade scenario, not simply move him as a formality. Mechanics. No. Specific trade proposal is currently attached to Bronny. This is purely about how the front office is framing his value internally. Why it matters. It signals the Lakers see him as part of their long-term young core, not as a symbolic leftover from the LeBron era. Obstacle. Perception is still catching up to that framing. As long as outsiders assume he's a package deal afterthought, his actual trade value could be underestimated by other teams, which cuts both ways for LA debate. Is the front office being realistic or protecting a narrative because moving on from LeBron's son immediately would look bad publicly? Unresolved consequence. Until a real offer materializes, this stays a story about optics more than transactions. Transition. While that situation simmers, a much bigger man in the middle has become the front office's most urgent headache. Mini headline. The Lakers keep calling about Jonathan Kuminga, but their offer isn't good enough to move him. Context. The Lakers have made front court scoring and rim pressure a clear offseason priority, and Kuminga, whose team option with Atlanta was previously declined, has been the centerpiece of that pursuit for weeks. Source. According to ESPN's Anthony Slater, Lakers president Rob Pelinka has personally and repeatedly called about Kuminga, pitching him a path to a starting role. Separately, The Athletic's Joe Vardon reported that league sources described the Lakers' actual trade offer to Atlanta as underwhelming. Mechanics. because Kuminga's option was declined. Any Lakers deal would need to be a sign-and trade, meaning Atlanta would need real assets back rather than just cap relief. Momentum on that structure has reportedly stalled, in part because the Lakers are unwilling to include the 2032 first-round pick swap rights. Their only movable first-rounder. Fit. On paper, a young, athletic scorer next to Doncic, and Reeves solves a real need. That's exactly why the front office keeps circling back. Obstacle. This is where it gets messy. Because Los Angeles won't move that pick, and Atlanta reportedly wants more than the Lakers are offering, Cleveland has been named as a team positioned to swoop in after missing out on LeBron itself. Debate. Should the Lakers finally put the 2032 pick swap on the table to win this negotiation, or does hoarding that asset protect them from a much bigger regret 3 or 4 years from now? Unresolved consequence. Every day this stalls. The Lakers get closer to losing Kuminga to a division Aja. Sent rival for nothing. Transition. Away from the trade table, a very different kind of decision is quietly forcing the Lakers' hand. Mini headline. The Lakers have too many players, and league rules say someone has to go. Context. Recent additions have pushed the roster to the edge of what's legally allowed. Source. Reporting indicates that once recently agreed deals with Kevin Looney and Matisse Thybulle are finalized, the Lakers will carry 16 guaranteed contracts, one more than the NBA's 15-man roster limit permits. Mechanics. On top of that, the Lakers currently sit just under the luxury tax line, giving the front office very little financial room to simply add pieces without subtracting anything. Why it matters. This isn't a hypothetical future problem. It has to be resolved before the regular season starts, one way or another. Obstacle. Cutting or trading a guaranteed contract usually means eating money, moving a piece for less than its value, or convincing another team to take on salary in a broader deal. None of which is simple this close to the tax line. Debate. Does a corner-cutting trade here quietly become a bigger domino that reshapes the Kuminga pursuit entirely? Unresolved consequence. Whatever gets moved to fix this roster crunch could end up being the most consequential minor transaction of the summer. Transition. That financial squeeze connects directly to a name that used to be central to the Lakers' backcourt. That mini headline. D'Angelo Russell is about to hit the open market, and it's not because of the Lakers. Context. Russell ended up in Memphis as part of a massive multi-team trade this summer, but his stay there was reportedly always going to be brief. Source. According to Yahoo Sports' Kelly Iko, Russell and the Grizzlies are working toward a contract buyout that would make him a free agent. Mechanics. Memphis is reportedly be yielding around a younger core, and an experienced guard with extensive playoff experience doesn't fit that timeline the way a rebuilding roster typically wants. Fit. For a Lakers team that just lost LeBron and is squeezed against the tax, a familiar face on a cheaper buyout contract is exactly the kind of value move front offices look for late in an offseason. Obstacle. Nothing here is Lakers-specific yet. This is speculation built on a buyout that hasn't been finalized, and multiple teams would likely have interest in a player with his track record. Debate. Would bringing Russell back solve a real backcourt need, or would it just be nostalgia disguised as roster building? Unresolved consequence. Whether this ever becomes an actual Lakers story depends entirely on whether that buyout happens, and how many other teams get there first. Transition. While the front office manages all of that noise, one quiet signing might be aging better than anyone expected. Mini headline. The Lakers' cheapest depth signing might be their most underrated move of the summer. Context. Amid all the star-driven headlines, the Lakers agreed to a modest one-year deal with forward Zaire Williams. Source. Per ESPN's Shams Charania, the deal is reported at 1 year and roughly $3 million. Mechanics. Williams, 24, spent time with both Memphis and Brooklyn and started for a stretch last season, averaging just over 10 points a game with solid defensive activity and steals. Fit. On a Lakers roster that's tight against the tax and searching for two-way wing depth, a cheap, versatile piece at that price is low risk, low-cost flexibility. Obstacle. A one-year deal. Means this is purely a prove-it situation. There's no long-term commitment on either side if it doesn't work out. Debate. Is this the kind of unglamorous move that quietly wins a roster, or just a forgettable depth signing that won't matter once the real headlines land? Unresolved consequence. If Williams outperforms his contract, he becomes trade value or a bargain re-signing. If no, he's a camp body. Transition. That brings us to the story that will define how fans remember this entire offseason. Mini headline. The Lakers already remade their front court once this summer, and the Kuminga saga could force them to do it again. Context. Before any of the current drama, the Lakers' big man rotation had already undergone a complete overhaul. Source. Reporting indicates Pelinka and the front office executed a sign-in trade to bring in Walker Kessler as the team's long-term starting center, alongside continued monitoring of the broader center market. Mechanics. That move was meant to lock down the 5 spot for years, pairing rim protection with a Doncic-led offense. But with the roster now at 16 guaranteed deals and the Kuminga sign-in trade in limbo, some reporting has floated a separate trade framework with a different Western Conference team that would help open a roster spot for Thibault while adding a starter-caliber piece. Fit. If real, this kind of move would solve 2 problems at once: the numbers crunch and a lingering need, without touching the protected 2032 pick. Obstacle. Any deal like that requires a willing trade partner, and reporting is clear this stays speculative and analyst-driven rather than sourced as advanced talks. Risk versus reward. The price of restructuring the front court twice in one summer is real: draft capital, roster continuity, chemistry. But if it locks in size, spacing, and depth around Doncic for the next several years, the front office may see it as the last piece of a bigger plan. Forced choice debate. Should the Lakers stand pat with Kessler and let the Kuminga chase play out on its own terms? Or should they get aggressive on a second center trade now, even if it means giving up more than they'd like? That's it for today's Lakers update. Should the front office finally include that 2032 pick SWA, to land Kuminga, or hold on to it and risk losing him to Cleveland for nothing? Tell us your pick in the comments. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more Lakers news and analysis. See you in T.